Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. Now, first time I ever heard my voice on tape, I hated it. Of course, this was back in the 1950s. Sound recording equipment was much cruder than what it is today. And certainly the tape recorder that was available to me was certainly not top of the line. So the sound was tinny, and very thin. But even with today's great sound recording technology, most people are pretty surprised when they hear their recorded voices for the first time. Because what you hear in your head sounds actually quite a bit different from what the world hears when we speak or sing. This is because our heads are natural echo chambers. Our cheekbones and sinuses are high-low, and the sound bounces around inside them. And our bones, particularly our skulls, vibrate with the sound that we make. So we hear all that, and we also hear the sound that comes out of our mouth reaching our ears. So what we hear is a much richer, fuller sound than what everybody else hears. That's why in recording studios, sound engineers, the first thing that they do is add echo to the vocals to make the sound better. And they also get to play with the various sound frequencies, bass, mid-range, and treble, to enhance the singer's voice. In the studio, even a mediocre voice can be made to sound really, really good by a smart sound engineer. That's why sometimes seeing your favorite band in concert can be a bit of a disappointment if you expect the same sound that their record had. I remember seeing the band Boston back in the 70s live, and they really sucked. But if you listen to their debut album, it's one of the great debut albums ever recorded. It's fantastic. Now, sound engineers have to understand their environment. For example, big rooms have a lot of natural echo, and they also resonate bass frequencies, which is good for singers, but can make the overall sound muddy. It takes a real good sound engineer to make sure that you really can hear all of the individual instruments in a big room, say a theater or an auditorium or something like that. See, every sound is a combination of bass, mid-range, and high frequencies. Even the highest notes have some bass in them, and the lowest notes have some treble. It's the proportions that give our voices their own distinctive tonal quality. Now, bass sound waves are very big. I've done a little illustration here. This is what a bass sound wave would look like. It's a huge curve. It can be 12, 15, 20 feet, even bigger. So if you're in a small room, you might not even get to hear the entire bass quality, because a lot of the sound wave doesn't take its full shape until it leaves the room. Mid-range and treble sound waves are a lot smaller. Matter of fact, the highest sound waves would be measured in millimeters. They'd look something like this here. Something like that little thing right there. But, like I said, every sound is a mixture of all the waves. So this is what your sound looks like as it reaches your ear. You hear some bass, some mid-range, some treble. while, I was a singer in a band. And I got over my feeling about my voice, and we learned to like it. So I was a singer for a while, and now I'm a stand-up comic. And so I learned something about sound as a singer, and I understand some things that maybe a lot of other comics don't. And that is that the sound that a comic is looking for is very, very different than the sound that a singer is looking for. A singer wants to have, likes a lot of echo, and maybe a little bit of extra bass on the voice to make their voice sound fuller. But for a stand-up comic, it's a totally different thing. So when I do a room, when I perform in a room that is not exclusively dedicated to comedy, sometimes I have to undo everything the poor sound engineer has worked so hard to create the sound of his room. I have to undo that because I want to get rid of all the echo. You don't want any echo. You want the sound absolutely flat. You want to crank down the bass and crank up the mid-range and the treble. And the reason for this is you want the sound crisp. You want it to be clear and easy to understand. So the audience doesn't have to work to hear what you're saying. The harder the audience has to listen, the less they are going to laugh, no matter how funny the joke is. Thanks for listening.